Marketer of the Day, number 467. Master the art of closing the sale to get more clients and referrals with Benjamin Brown. Hey everyone, and thanks for listening. We're talking right now with Benjamin Brown, and Ben is going to tell us about how to master the art of closing the sale. His website is at 360salesconsulting.com, where he focuses on giving great tips and advice for salespeople worldwide. So we're going to have a lot of fun today. Glad to be talking to you today, Mr. Ben.
Thank you for having me on, sir.
Very glad to have you on. So can you kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and what makes you stand out, what makes you special?
Well, I've been in sales for over 23 years, and 2 years ago I went digital, not digital, but started building my sales consulting firm. From B&I also have a limousine service that I've had for 8 years, and people started coming to me for advice for sales and started seeing the impact that I was getting there. So I started setting up my business. I figured I'd know sales through and through, not totally, but nobody's 100%. But being able to help people on a real as far as being more effective in sales, because a lot of people don't have a sales process. They are in business, but they haven't taken any training or haven't done anything in advanced college, and high school doesn't cover it. And so from there, I started working locally, building sales, sales teams from scratch for some companies, and started going digital about a year ago, and written a book, Master the Art of Closing the Sale, last year that went bestseller on Amazon. So from then on, I've just been helping small businesses and entrepreneurs educate them on the language of actually selling.
Well, great. And so, I mean, what do people need to know about this whole sales thing? Because, like, whenever I dig into it, whenever I'm thinking, okay, well, I would love to be able to call some customers or call some cold prospects and get a handle on like my script, my conversion rate, and then scale that out later on. Whenever I look into that, I get stuck either in these dudes that get super crazy and they talk about like, building this huge sales floor. And I'm thinking, okay, well, that's super like crazy stuff. I want to start with something simple first. And on the other end of things, I look into like, sales techniques and stuff like that. And I get a lot of kind of cheesy, tired swipe file sort of stuff. So, I mean, is that common? Is that a common experience for someone to go through if they're looking about all the sales stuff?
Yeah, sales is a skill. So basically, it's just like anything else. It has to be taught properly. It's like learning karate from a book. You're going to need an instructor to help you go through it, because there's so many different facets in sales as far as voice tone, then also having the steps of common sense steps of actually selling, like qualification. What are you doing for that? For a lot of my students, I listen to their phone calls after they go through the training, so that gives them feedback, because in sales, either you're getting better or worse every day, right? And if you haven't practiced it, which is the main key, and that's the difference that I provide, is giving ability for one-on-one people to actually practice their skill before they practice on, because you never practice on your clients. So if you're doing phone conversation or face-to-faces or even emails, you need to know the process of what you're going to do, just like a sales funnel or email campaign, of what you're going to do and exactly how you're going to say it, so you can get the feedback so you can move to the next level. Because 60% of sales is actually confidence. If you're not feeling confident about your product and confident about your sales process, it's just like an actor going on stage and don't know their lines, right? It looks really, really bad. So what you need to do is be able to have a thorough sales process from the time somebody gets on the phone with you, knowing the steps that you need to go through, and that's why I created the 10-step process. But it has to be really taught. It just can't be read a book and then just go out there and do it. You need to be able to practice it effectively first.
Okay, great. And that makes a lot of sense. And I like your learning karate from a book analogy, not just in the sense that it takes a while to get good at it, and then also that concept there that you need to stay in form, you need to keep the muscle strong, but then also just the whole idea of, well, you have to have it down so well that it's almost automatic so that you can think on your feet and know where you are in the process. In the same way, like if you're, playing karate, you're on the phone, things are moving so fast. If you have to go and look at a book or figure out what you're doing, I mean, the time's already passed, right?
Absolutely, because the customer's already gone. They're already prepared. All they have to do is say no, right?
Right.
So, you have to be prepared for all the other minor objections that you're going to go through. And the main thing is listening to the client. So when you're on a sales call, there's three things you have to do. You have to know your process. You have to actually ask the specific questions to make sure you get the answers that you need, and then also listening to the client, because they're going to give you a couple tidbits normally if they're interested in your product that most sales reps miss because they're just moving too fast in their sales process. So quick to get to the presentation, and then the presentation is supposed to sell itself. And as you know, when the objections come, if you don't have enough information to overcome those objections, you'll miss the sale most of the time.
Okay, so having said all that, so we need to know the process, ask specific questions, and then listen. That way, our sort of feedback is customized. Like, it seems a little overwhelming just to think about, okay, well, if I've got an offer, now I need to think about like these scripts and these questions, and I have to teach people how to do it, but also think on their feet. So how do you start to crack this nut? If a client comes to you, how do you even attack this problem?
Well, I evaluate based on, because I customize depending on their product or service. The product is different from services, right? And just evaluate actually what they're doing now. And most of the time I can figure out right away, normally 2 or 3 things that can turn around their day right away. Because if you haven't studied sales, even though you've been in business for years but don't understand the process, normally I can take somebody within about 2 or 3 weeks and just start changing the entire system around and then build a foundation upon that. Because it's just like a marketing strategy. You have a marketing plan, but most people don't have a sales plan. What do I say when I first pick up the phone? Hi, my name is Ben. How can I help you? That's wrong. So it's a number of things that I pick up on people right away that they don't know, because I've been in sales so long. Everything in life is actually a sales process, right? So a child asking you to pick them up is a sale. They ask all the time. That's called a constant close, right? So, they don't know how to sell you, but they know how to close. And what happens, we live in Western civilization. So we teach children that that's rude. You shouldn't ask all the time, right? Ask one time. If you don't get it, then sit around. And what happens in life when you go through school and go through college, if you can't afford what you want, you just don't get it. Whereas in other civilizations, everything is about sales. They have a market. There's no prices. Everybody negotiates all the time. In America, we don't do that because there's the price. If you can afford it, you can afford it. And people hate going to the car dealerships because they don't want to negotiate. They don't know how to negotiate. And so when they start opening up businesses and then starting to learn that they have to sell, or they have a negative connotation with it. So a lot of in the beginning, what I do is change people's mindset of what sales is. It's not a negative thing. It's all around us all the time.
Right, I completely agree, and that these kids are maybe in their own way building a SWOT file or figuring out maybe through trial and error the ways that things that work in order to get what they want. And so when people come to you, do they already have a sales team? Do they already have like a script and things like that, and you tear it down usually and build it back up like you said, or do they sometimes start from scratch, or what's the situation there?
All different walks, because I can evaluate an actual sales system to tell you where the holes are in your net right now. Or I like working with people that's brand new because they don't have any negative connotation with sales or anything that they've done in the past that they have a negative about it. So I can take them because they're very easy to mold. And sometimes people that never done sales before do great at it if they learn the right way the first time. Whereas some people work for a company that had a script and they think that is sales. But normally that's not it. Because most businesses don't invest a lot of time in training. Some companies do. I mean, you take IBM, which is number one, that's done it for many of years. Anybody came out of IBM back in the days built all these businesses based on sales. Whereas most people build their businesses based on product or service. The product should sell itself. And that's normally not the case. And what happens when you work in a good market with a product and you have a bunch of low-hanging fruit, people think they're killing it when they're actually order takers, right? And then the market changes or the business changes or things of that nature, and they realize they have to go out and sell. This is when people normally reach out to me, and then I realize they haven't had any type of sales training whatsoever. So most of the things they've been doing has been very low-hanging fruit, not a lot of objections, right? So they think they're killing it in sales, and they're not really in sales. They're just order taking. And most of the people that do swipe files and email marketing, they're selling at arm's length. They're using the conversion with the words, which is a good thing. People made millions of dollars on it. But in most cases, I tell people, for example, I'll come into a business. I've done it a couple of times. And they'll evaluate everything. And I say, okay, I'm going to come in tomorrow, pull out the 50 hottest leads that you currently have. that you have from email or whatever with a phone number. And they'll pull that down, and then I'll come in the next day and I'll grab this phone and I say, okay, let's pick up the phone and start calling people. And they'll look at me like I just shot their dog. They're like, what? Call them? Like, yeah, we're going to call and close. So people are selling at arm's length, and they feel very comfortable doing that with copy and things like that. But sales has been around forever. I'd rather be on the phone. Somebody sends me an email, I'd rather give them on the phone. One of the things in my limo business is that I always answer the phone. Or if somebody sends me an email for a request for a limousine, I pick up the phone and call them, right? So I'm going to do the sale myself because I know my product and service. I'm confident in it. I know my competition, and I know the sales process. And most of the time, a high percentage of the time, I will get that deal because I know sales, and I've actually picked up the phone, whereas most competition don't do that.
Well, great. And so you bring up something kind of interesting that it seems like a lot of people are, like, in general, afraid to be on the phone, especially people who are calling out trying to make money. But I don't know about you, but it seems like these days a lot of people are afraid to even answer the phone. Like, they'd rather get a Facebook message or a text or something. So have you encountered any of that? Has, like, your percentage of people who actually pick up the phone declined in the last few years?
Oh, well, it hasn't really, because the phone has never gone away. It's just your persistence in reaching out to people, right?
Right.
It's the same thing. Social media has taken away from people where they think their main communication is through, SMS or email or things like that, when really that's not the case. If somebody's interested in your product, you get them on the phone, you can call them, right? You get a voicemail, just call them back. And so what happens is the reason that differentiates you from most of your competition is because most times your competition is not doing that, right? I don't know how many times I called and I got somebody, oh, this is a live person. Oh, yeah. Or most people go at my limo service because I answer the phone and they didn't get a voicemail. So that communication is missing right now in what millennials and everybody else like the Instagram and tweet and text. Get people on the phone and actually have a conversation is the way that your confidence in your product service, and you put them in the sales process. And most of the time, if you have a good product and good price and helping them, you'll get the deal. And people are always amazed after they use my services, like, man, I should have been doing this years ago. Yeah, how much money have you missed out on selling at arm's length? Back and forth through emails, right? I'd rather have you on the phone.
Right, me too. So what you're saying is that we might see, like, some people who might be afraid of the phone, but people who are serious about their business or people who are serious about whatever problem they're trying to solve, that little section has no problem.
Absolutely, because the first thing I do when I work with clients, because I don't work with many, especially one-on-one time-wise, but the first thing I have to do, you either have to like or love your product, right? Like or love it, because you have to feel that to pass it on to you. It's a feeling, right? If I'm talking to you on the phone about my product and I'm not excited, why would you be excited? So, you have to like and love your product to get through the hard times when things start going wrong with your business, which normally does, right?
Right.
And so if you don't have that, if you're using somebody else's product and you're not confident in it, it's more difficult to sell, right? And the next thing I teach people is never assume anything, right? Never assume that they're a decision maker, never assume they have the money, never assume anything. It's all ruled out by questions that you ask. So that's the way you can find most of your market, is by getting on the phone and communicating with people and figuring out, is this the person do I really want to work with? Because what you're doing is you're qualifying all the time. Should this person buy my product? Normally is what you're doing, right? I'm trying to sell them. It's like, can I help them and do they qualify for my product? Because one of the things I do teach is bad money. That's when people get desperate and they'll sell to anyone, and they realize that some of those people are a pain in the butt, and you'll spend more time with them than you would with a good client anyway, right?
Right.
That happens a lot. So there's all these different qualifiers in a sales process that you need, but the main thing is that you're being able to reproduce that over and over and over again, because there's a number of businesses that don't need marketing because they just do primarily sales.
Okay. So great. So yeah, a lot of this is making sense as far as the going through the the canned script doesn't make sense because sometimes you need to ask extra questions to get things, or maybe you get them out of order. And so you mentioned that when you go to someone new, you kind of do that tear down and have them build a good foundation, so that way that they learn about sales, so that way they're not just using this other thing as a crutch. So I mean, how does that process work? Like, is that a long process, or are there a lot of things to be learned and mastered there?
Yeah, it's called mastering the sales. It's an ongoing process because I use a 10-step process, and my last step that I use is not closing. My last step is to generate referrals. Most businesses that are out there that's serious about sales that don't need marketing gets most of their business through referrals. The insurance company is great at that, right? And also in financing, because they have a small target market, or investment companies. When I go to my investment guy, he always asks me, who do you know, who do you know, who do you know? You always average are the people you hang around with. So if I'm a client and he knows that I know people about my saved average, income and things of that nature, which is his market. Most people don't ask. They get off, they're so excited about the sale, they get on, they go to a cold lead. So you need to have a referral program too, the way that you ask specifically, and you ask at the end of the sale. You don't ask down the line and all that. You realize in some cases, for me example, I got 3 referrals from a client, closed 2 of them, and a week later the other clients decided that, he wanted to do a full return of the product, and I had no problem with that because he already made me double the money, right?
Awesome. Yeah.
So people don't know there's 20 to 40% of your business you're missing just by not asking for referrals in most cases, and I find that all the time with companies. Like, how many referrals you get per day? And they're like, I don't know. It's like, what? You already spent the time. And people, when they spend money with you, if they trust you with their money, they trust you with their friends. So ask for their friends who else that you can actually help. And that referral program alone probably will boost the business between 20 to 40% in most cases, depending on what your product or service is because you're not doing the essential things that you need to. You're letting the marketing do the work, which is nothing wrong with marketing. If you have low-hanging fruit and all that stuff in business is good. But if you are selling, you can always, most clients I work with, only 30 to 80% improvement just because they have a sales process, they understand sales, they're confident in it, they're not afraid to talk to anybody, they understand what it's all about, they don't have that negative connotation anymore, and they're eager to get on the phone with anyone and put them through that process, as long as they practice it, which is the key, is practice. Once you practice it, it just becomes great. It's like doing a stand-up gig and getting a round of applause at the end. You practice that stand-up, what you're going to say, when you're going to say it, right?
Right.
So it's the same thing in sales. And you can use scripting if you're doing, till you get it down to a certain extent, because you want to be able to test that scripting to figure out, is that working, or like A or B testing when you do with email marketing, right? So you can use scripts, but most of the time, if you have it in your head and you know, hey, I'm in step number 4, I need to make sure I get an answer here before I go to step number 5. Right? And if I don't get it, I'm not moving to step number 5, because if you have a proper sales process, you're saving yourself probably about 50 to 75% time of working with people you want to work with, because you'll be able to disqualify people quicker. It's like, instead of presenting this 10 or 15 minute presentation on what you do, you ruled out before that this guy is not what you want, or can't afford your product, or just not qualified, and you'll realize that, and you just move on to the next one. Because the difference in sales is just moving from one new client to new client in a smaller period of time, right? So it's all a numbers game. If you pitch 100 people on anything, you'll probably get 1 sale. But if you know a good sales process, out of 100, you might get 10, right? So all you have is time, 9 to 5, 60-hour, 90-hour weeks. But most of the time, you should be working with clients you want to work with.
That makes perfect sense, and I love it. And by kind of presenting the things in the way that you have, it sounds like it takes a lot of the emotion out of it, or at the very least, a lot of the fear, the uncertainty. Because if you're just going through your contacts and just moving them to whatever stage you need to get moved to, then that seems like it's it's a lot more like scientific and mechanical as far as thinking about it. And then and yeah, and so I think that getting to that point where someone can just pick up the phone and make that call and then smell any if anything feels wrong or any red flags and end that call to get to that point sounds really great. So what sort of a turnaround time are we talking here? Like how long does it take with your program for someone to start making these calls and also to really get good at it?
Normally for someone, I give, the reason my program is so good is because based on the one-on-one process that I work with, depending on their product or service, because I qualify them, I want to make sure that they're going to get the value that they want, right? So if you're selling a $500 product, a $1,000 product, you double or triple your sales, that basically makes it easy. So in most cases, within the first 45 days, depending on their product or service, I tell them my goal is to have their clients pay for me, right, within that 45 days.
Awesome.
So, but with the new sales that you're getting, right? So if you have a product, say around $400, $500, and you're making, $6,000 a month or $10,000 a month, and I can come in there and boost it up to 10 or 15 or 20, my program only costs $6,000, and that gives you 3 months of me one-on-one time. Right? So every day we're on the phone. Once a week we're on the phone, and we're going through each one of these steps. You have the book. I have a full course online that you go through each one of the steps. But main thing is that you're getting the one-on-one where I'm actually telling you what you're doing wrong. Right? The main thing is that you'll figure out sales eventually, but how many clients you're going to burn to get there. Right?
Right.
So main thing, one of the key things I do is because of technology, they can record their calls and send them to me, and I can analyze them and say, I go back through the steps and say, okay, the Marine Corps in me comes out. Why did you say that? Where were you going on that? Right? It's like, well, I don't know. I'm like, well, you're going off track there, and you let them go, right? Because you just started assuming. Remember, the first thing I teach is never assume anything, right?
Right.
Well, I thought, don't think, ask. Are you the decision maker? Yes. So how many times you got towards the end and you asked somebody, your decision maker, they said yeah, and you didn't confirm it or anything else. You got towards the end, and you say, okay, let's start doing business together. And they say, well, I got to go talk to somebody else, a wife or a business partner, right? And you're like, oh, so whose fault is that? That's yours. You didn't qualify. You never pitch to nobody who's not qualified, right? So if you're not the decision maker, you're telling me you're the decision maker, and you say, well, I have another business partner. I say, well, let's get them on the phone so I can explain the full program and make sure this is exactly for you. I'm not going to pitch you, then send you a quote, and then have you take it to the decision maker. He looks at the quote, and he goes, it's not enough information. I can't answer the questions, and I'm not there. And he decides, oh, we're not going to do this. And how many times you get the call back, we just decided we're not going to go with that right now. That's a kiss of death. You don't have any feedback what you did wrong. You don't know whether it's price. You don't know whether it's product. You don't know anything. And you just wasted a lot of time, and probably you're chasing them for 2 or 3 days to get a call back with them on the quote you sent out, right?
Right, and not only that, but you'll most likely be replicating your mistakes with the next people that you call with the same if you're missing something critical like that.
And then where's your confidence level while you're going through that?
In the toilet.
Right. So you have no confidence. You're going out, now you're desperate, right? So you're just going out, you're just pitching and wishing. And you change up styles, and you start doing this and doing that. Even though you got a good product, it doesn't matter. That's why people have inferior products and kicking butt in sales and kicking a lot of people butt is because they know how to sell. So the product is great. Your product might be better, but they're killing you in sales is because they know how to sell, right?
Yeah. Yeah, this is making a lot of sense, and it's turned on a lot of light bulbs here. So if someone's listening to our conversation today and they said, I thought about sales, or I need to work on my sales, and this idea of getting the foundation figured out and getting this feedback so I don't miss things, that sounds great. You said that there's a process where you need to talk to someone first. Is that right?
You need to talk. You need to understand what sales is all about. Like, what's the owner of the Dallas Mavericks, Mr. Cuban?
Mark Cuban.
Mark Cuban. He tells you right there, if there's one thing you need to know in business, you need to know how to sell. So there's people taking marketing classes. They're taking all of these things, how to make a funnel, how to make a website, how to do all of this stuff, how to be a promotional partner, but they're not taking anything in sales. So even though they got all this process set up and the business set up, when the phone rings, they still don't know how to pitch your product right. right? Even though they
Right.
put all this work in to bring the client directly to you, put a price on it where you can charge for it, but they don't know how to communicate to and convert a potential client into a client verbally or by email or any way else. Because I want people to be able to, call me and get on the phone. How many websites you go to and there's no phone number?
Tons.
They just want you to click on this and then get this, and then it goes into an email and it's all at a distance. And hopefully after about 15, 20 emails, you click on this or come to a webinar, and then you go to a webinar and click on this and click on this. You never actually talk to anybody, right? So
Right.
most of the time, I'd rather have people click on this and call for a session. Let me find out, evaluate your product, find out what you're doing, and find out if I can help you, right? And that's my sales pitch, because it is a sales pitch, right? Can I help you? Because if I can't help you, my last step in my sales process is generate referrals. So I want to work with clients so they can get benefits, give me testimonials like they do on LinkedIn. I got like 17 of them. And so when I ask them, I say, who else do you know I can help? He's going to tell me. And then I'm going to ask him a ton of information about that person, and then ask him what time should I call him. And then he's going to tell me. And then when I call that person, they're ready for my call. I know a lot of information about them, so my next sale is going to be easy, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I've been waiting for your call. I heard you've been working with such and such. He's telling me great things about your blah, blah, blah. Great. Let me ask you a couple questions, see if I can help you too as well. And it just moves the process a whole lot easier than getting on the phone with another cold call, right? So you're building your own database by putting them through a sales process and generating referrals. So you're generating your own leads by word of mouth by what you're actually doing. So it really depends on your product or service or what you're doing, but it can be done very easy. I work with a printing company that guys, they were customer service agents, and the owner said, I want you to turn them into salespeople, and bought the program, and I worked with them for 3-4 months. They're killing it now because they're doing what every other printing company is not doing. Hey, you want this, this, and this? Here's a quote, send it out, and they wait for people to call them back to actually order. They don't sell them. So now when they get on the phone, people call up, they're closing them on the first call, getting credit cards, purchase orders, and they're following up, going back into their database, calling them back up, selling them. So their sales has went up at least by 40% now because they're selling instead of just pitching, right?
Yeah, it seems like a way more efficient way to go about it, and it's like it's less aggressive in the sledgehammer sort of way, but it's more aggressive in the way that seems works better.
Well, most people think sales is a negative connotation where you get clothes and stuff like this. And I give a lot of analogies when I teach. But one of the things I understand is that, do you know a homeless person on a good corner with a good head on their shoulders with persistence that they can make anywhere between $300 to $800 a day, right? And then I ask people, I said, that homeless person that you give money to that's making that money, what are they offering you? And they say, well, it make me feel good. I said, no, what are they offering you? They're offering you nothing. And they're making $300 to $800 a day, and you have most businesses that cannot do that. And the reason why is because they're not asking enough. Now, that homeless person doesn't have overhead, don't have a computer, don't have internet access bills, don't have phone bills, don't have accountant, don't have website fees, nothing. They're just going out every day, putting a sign up and asking a ton to get that money. And most people have a business, an office, beautiful computer, and all this stuff, and they can't make that type of money is because they're not asking.
Right. That's a really funny way of looking at it. Like most people don't have that persistence. They don't put themselves in front of a large enough number of people. They don't have the same process that homeless person has, and so it sounds like it's maybe not an instant process to change our ways, but it's way easier than it would be trying to go it alone, right?
Yeah, if you try, I mean, in sales, the main thing is feedback, like confidence level. So, everybody has mentors. Every successful person out there have mentors. I've spent maybe 20 grand on mentors last year. So nobody knows it all. Mark Cuban probably has mentors. And so most small businesses, I don't work with them if they don't have an understanding that you have to invest in yourself to get to the next level. You can invest in these tools for $17, $49 a month, $200 or $300 that automate stuff. That's great. But if you have a mentor telling you what you need to do, and most of the time in sales, they don't have anybody. And one of the main things I ask them, I say, are you ready to invest in yourself to get you to the next level? Because once you learn sales, if you practice it, you will always have it, period. So you could change companies, change products, change whatever. I could sell refrigerators tomorrow. right? If I need to sell a refrigerator, you give me a list of people who's interested in a refrigerator, I'll pick up the phone. Hi, my name is Ben Brown. I see that you're interested in a refrigerator. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and see if I can help you? Would that be okay? Right? I'm doing the same thing. It's just changing the product. So that's why companies come to me and say, I don't know if I can help you because we do this. And I said, well, I don't really care what you do. I don't really care what product because you're overthinking it. Sales is sales, right? It's a process. So all you're doing is putting that product or service in that process. And sometimes the sales cycle is longer. Some people's sales, cycle is 3 months, 4 months. But, most of the time it's a week. If you got a decision maker on the your product, you can get it done right then and there.
Well, super great. So do you have an ideal client? Like if someone's listening to our conversation today and if they're not sure if they're a good fit for you, is there anything that you'd put out there for them to qualify or disqualify themselves?
Most of the time I work with small businesses, under 25 people, or entrepreneurs that really need to get to the next level. They're making $50,000 to $80,000. They get a couple phone calls. They don't have a process. So they know that if they're able to convert more and sell more and most of the people have a database and they never call them. They just email them. So if I can get on the phone with their database, pick up the phone and start calling people, you have all that, it's like shaking a tree. There's tons of leads in the whole database because people already bought from you, already know about you, right? Or email list.
Right.
So it's different from emailing people when you can phone and call and say, hi, my name is Ben Brown. You've been on my website. I would like to talk to you about some of my programs. Would that be okay? And then start putting them through the sales process. Like, yeah, I see you. Because people buy because what? They know, like, and trust.
Right.
So in that sales process, one of mine is calling connect and relating. So I'm going to connect and relate with you before I actually sell you. Tell me a little bit about yourself, what you do. If I found your Facebook page and I see that you like dogs, I'm going to interject. I see you like labs. People love talking about themselves. And the more you talk, the more they talk about themselves, the more the confidence level is there. And the reason you want that, because now they're willing to answer the tough questions that you need to help them. Right? If I come off the street and just come up to you and say, how much money do you have in your bank account? You're going to look at me like I'm crazy. Right? But if I talk to you and say, I'm a financial analyst and I do this and this, tell me a little bit about your financial situation. I say, well, how much do you have in your bank account now? And you'd be like, around about $3,000. Right? And that probably could be done within about 3 to 5 minutes, and now I'm qualified. Well, I'm looking for somebody normally that has 50 in there, but it was good to meet you, but, blah, 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 and keep moving. Right?
Yeah, that's cool. And I like that this concept that keeps coming up with us of using social media to your advantage. Like a lot of people talk about how, it's hard to get that one-on-one or things like that, but you check out their LinkedIn, you check out their Facebook, so that way you have those icebreakers, those conversation starters.
Yeah, because people love talking about themselves, and you have to use the technology to your advantage. I see your Instagram. I see you've been to Paris. I see you this and that. So it normally only takes 3 to 5 minutes to research somebody now. You know a little bit about them. You know what they look like. You know if they're married to kids. You know all that kind of other stuff. You pull that up in a conversation. People start communicating about that. Maybe you went to the same college back in the day. You don't know. Oh, I see you went to the University of Wisconsin. My cousin went there. His name is Greg. He played for the football team. Oh, I know Greg. Bam, that's it. Right? So, it's 6 degrees of separation in this lifetime anyway. So it's 10 steps that I normally start with, and one of the first ones I do is called getting prepared. So before you even get on the phone and communicate with people, you need to mentally, physically, and organize yourself to be prepared for that phone call. So if you're hungover, you're not feeling it, you just got a bad call, you just got a bill or something like that, I'm not going to get on the phone and try to sell anybody because I'm emotionally not there. Right?
Right.
So if it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon and I've been up since 5 o'clock, I'm probably not going to get on the phone because I'm kind of tired. So I'll probably save that phone call when I'm peaked up around about between 9 and 10 o'clock in the morning, right? So
right. When you can bring your A game at that point.
Bring your A game and then organize. I'm going to sit here and make sure that my company, I don't have to sell all week. But maybe between 9 and 11 o'clock, I would just put aside my Facebook, my marketing, and everything else, and just get on the phone for maybe like 20 minutes and just make like 15, 20 calls. Just to focus, because most people aren't focused. They're multitasking. They're looking at computers. They're looking at their phone while they're on the phone. You need to have the client's attention to make sure that you can sell them. And you need to be fully there so you can listen to when they say, well, I was thinking about doing that, but I just couldn't afford it back then. You'd be like, great, let me tell you what I got. No, it's like, you would have did it, but you didn't do it back then, but you couldn't afford it. Tell me a little bit more about that, right? Slow it down, you know? And then so when you get toward the end and you say, what card do you want to put on? The guy goes, and well, you already told me you tried to do this a long time ago, and the reason you didn't do that because you told me this, right? And then you also told me this, right? Right. So that makes sense to me, right? Yes. Yes, yes, yes. What card do you want to put on? Once you get a person saying yes, it's hard to say no sometimes. So it's called building a yes pattern. So it's a technique. It's not scamming. It's not nothing else. It's basic sales, right?
Right.
One of the rules that I teach and a tidbit that I give is that when a person gives you the first objection, ignore it because it's normally not real. So if I go, what card do you want to put it on? You say, I got to think about it. I'm not going to go, what do you got to think about? Oh, this and that. Now I'm going back down my sales, path. I'm backing up. I'm already at the close. I'm staying at the close. I'm going to come back and say, well, you already told me this, right? And you go, yep, because I already have the information there. And you already told me this. And the reason you want this is because you want to make $10,000 so you can take the family to Colorado and you and your son can go fishing. You already told me that, right? Yeah. Okay. So what card do you want to put in? Most of the time, people just come back and say Visa when an unskilled person would say, what do you got to think about? Well, I got to think about this. I got to think about that. And next thing you know, you haven't isolated that objection. He's all over the map. You can't catch him. He's running.
Yeah,
people don't like to.
That's cool.
People don't like to be laid. People don't want to be laid out, right? You like it. You can afford it, but you don't want to just give up. So naturally, our instinct is to throw something out there. I got to think about that. Or, right? And if you take that and don't know how to handle it, you've lost it. So you send them a quote, then you 2-3 days on the phone trying to contact them back, and when you get them back, remember when you get off the phone call, if your sales process, you spent time and you went through and present, and you know this guy's qualified and he can afford it and need it and all this stuff, and if you and you know that he could pay for it right then and there, and you don't get him, and you send him a quote and you let him off the phone, as soon as you get off the phone, you're going from 100 and it's just dropping temperature on that sale. So the next time you get him on the phone, if you don't bring him back up to 100, he's going to be at 30. Hey, Greg, I talked to you 2 days ago. You looked at that quote? What is that? He's going to tell you what? I'm still looking at it. Oh, yeah. You're done. You're done. And you spent how much time putting them into your calendar, calling back, or tracking back. And it's just a waste of time.
And what I'm hearing a lot from some of these stories you're telling me is that sometimes the initial knee-jerk natural reaction is not the way to go, like responding to someone's objections or giving them some time to cool off or whatever. And what that makes me think of is I was working with someone once where we were trying to sell some software, or not trying, we were selling software, and then whenever we do any kind of stage selling, there would always be someone who would pick away at all the features, say, oh, does it do this, does it do that? And I saw this person go from being in selling mode to being in product specification mode. And then a few weeks later, I saw someone else sell someone similar, and then someone was asking about all these features, and then the person, instead of trying to unpack or trying to be led around by that prospect, the person said, well, if the answer to your question was yes, would you buy it? And then that kind of shut it down and packaged it in, so that way it became more of a decision and less of trying to do all this fact finding.
Yeah, because some questions are buying signals.
Yeah, for
So
sure.
they're giving you a buying signal. When I get toward the end of my presentation, the first thing I'm going to say is, and one of the other parts of my sales process is, so based on everything that we talked over, does it sound like a winner to you?
Awesome.
Right? I'm asking you, does it sound like a winner to you? I'm asking you, does it sound like it's solving your problem? Because people are buying things to run away from something or get something, right? It's something that they fear or something that's going to give them pleasure. So based on everything that we talked about, does it sound like a winner for you? And the person says yes. And then the next question I'm asked, does it sound like the way you want to go? Now, I haven't asked for the credit card yet, but I'm asking you, does it sound like it's going to fix your problem? Yes. Does it sound like the way you want to go? Yes. Now I know for an unskilled salesperson, if I got 2 yeses and I put that in my sales process, I now know that I can confidently ask for the credit card, which people freak out about. And some companies, some businesses don't even ask. I've been with people, I'm like, why are you not asking? You're like, oh, they're waiting for the client to come tell them. Can I put that on the card? Goodness gracious, really? You got to ask. So, if I get those two questions, yes and yes, and I'll come back, great, what card do you want to put it on? And another hot tip, once you ask for the money, shut up. Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. That's for one of the major rules in sales. They'll ask for the credit card, what card do you want to put it on? And the guy sits there and wait. My longest time on the phone waiting for a credit card was 10 minutes of dead silence.
Wow.
10 minutes of dead silence. I knew he was still on. It took him that long to take all that information, divulge it, make sure first one talk loses, right? I didn't break that rule. I put him on mute. I'm playing with a ball, walking around. I know he's still on. I knew the rule. It was killing me, but I knew I was disciplined, and I knew that was, if I would have said anything, oh, are you still on? Or let me tell you something else about the product. Why am I going to go back and repitch? Oh, let me tell you what else it does. Or do you have any questions about that? Or are you still there? Or, you're doubting yourself. And you don't doubt yourself when you get to the close.
Yeah, lots of ways to talk yourself out of a sale, it sounds like. And I just interviewed someone yesterday, and he had that exact problem. He had the problem of filling the silence after asking for a sale and saying a bunch of things to make it confusing. Yeah. And this guy's solution was that he'd put his hand into a fist and bite down on it. And that was the only way that he could avoid talking. And I think he told me some stories of like 20 to 30 seconds sometimes of just silence, and then he got the sale. But if he had kept on blabbing, he would have lost it.
And some people, another negative thing that they do, their presentation is too long. They present, and then, about 2 minutes in there, I don't know, some people have 5-minute presentation, 10-minute presentations on the phone, explaining their program, going through a demo online and all that stuff where they got them on and they're showing them through something else. People don't have patience for that. After about 5-10 minutes, they've been checked out. Right. So if your presentation would have been shorter and actually customized based upon what I have what's called emotional triggers, people buy emotionally, figure out what emotional trigger they're looking for, right? They want it to make more money. What are they going to do with the money? They're going to go on a trip. They're going to buy a car. What is the color of the car? What does it look like? What is it going to smell like when they get in there? So when I get it towards the close and I say, you told me you want to do this so you can make some money to get that green Toyota Corolla that's going to smell like what? Brand new car. Great. What car do you want to put it on? Because I asked more detailed questions, right?
Right. So it sounds like a lot of us out there are on the right track, but we need some kind of fine-tuning. We need some of the right phrases, or we need to know if we're having some kind of problem that we're not even aware we're having this problem. Maybe we need to be brought aware of this, of the things that maybe we're doing wrong or leaving out or shooting ourselves in the foot in whatever way. And so I'm sure people listening are getting a lot of great ideas and a lot of great things to go out and try as far as their selling goes. So what are the next steps here? If someone wants to go and check out your websites, your offers, where should they go for that sort of thing?
Oh, they can go to 360salesconsulting.com. On there I have a guide of the 10 steps that we have. And I'm one of those guys, hey, here's my phone number, 863-274-3898. It's Benjamin Brown. Reach out. You can call me. Schedule a time. We can sit down and talk. Everybody's busy. Normally a 30-minute conversation to evaluate what you're doing, probably what you're doing wrong, figure out if I can help. But mainly, everybody needs a sales process. What is your sales process? And normally what I come up to people when they have their own business. And they just look at me. They can't answer that question. It's a problem. Well, what we do is we get the customers first. We put them into a database. We wait, and then we give them a call. We have a script. We set them up for a demo, blah, blah, blah. Most people don't have that. They just get on the phone, send them an email. We send them this. Then we give them an email drip campaign or something like that. So if your product is normally, say, over $300 or more, then it's easy to double or triple your sales just by getting more active. Sometimes it's just being more active because, and I'll cover this, most people are selling in reactive mode, which means they're waiting for the clients to come to them through marketing, which is good. That's a low-hanging fruit. If it works, it works. But you should be in proactive mode. That normally happens when the country goes into a recession like in '08. All those businesses went out of business is because they're selling in reactive mode. So when the customers dry up from their marketing, they have no way of making more money. Whereas the people that were more effective through '08, who loved it, can get on the phone and continue to close and don't need marketing because they're being proactive. So those people that doubled and tripled their businesses during the recession were proactive because they knew it. They're like, all the amateurs are going to get, taken out of their business because they don't know how to sell.
Right. So all the people who were just fooling around, who were lucky, who didn't know how good they had it, they get weeded out. Whereas the people who take a little bit of time to figure out some skill, to do that trial and error, that course correction, to get it dialed in, then they're the ones who will win when everyone else kind of just like drops out. So make sure that you guys go to 360salesconsulting.com to claim that freebie to figure out that 10-step sales process. And then once again, Ben gave you a phone number. You guys ready for it? Here it is, 863-274-3898. So 863-274-3898. And then we'll also see you over at 360salesconsulting.com. So, Mr. Ben, great conversation today. And as we close things up, do you want to leave us with any last piece of advice, or is anything kind of coming to mind for you to kind of wrap this all up here?
Sales is a skill. If you acquire that skill, I could take anybody on the street, just like a homeless person, and you could generate money with that skill. That's why there's people that never left the sales game. It's just they change products or service or gigs, because it is a skill. And a lot of people don't acquire that these days, but if you still had that, and sales been around since forever. And so it is not going away. It's not changing, even though we do a lot of digital and everything on the internet. Sales is still the point, just like Mr. Cuban said. First thing you need to learn in business is sales. And that's why I like doing what I do, because what I do is, if you listen to what I tell you to do, you're going to make money, period.
Subscribe to us right now while it's still fresh on your mind at marketeroftheday.com.